The city in Se7en does not feel alive. It feels infected. Rain falls like punishment. Streets sweat filth. Apartments rot from the inside. And every room seems to hold the smell of something human breaking down. This is not the kind of place where evil arrives like an intruder. It is the kind of place where evil looks like it has been renting for years. Detective William Somerset has spent most of his life walking through that decay. He is intelligent, precise, exhausted, and only days away from retirement. He has seen enough violence to know that crime is not just about bad people doing bad things. Sometimes it is about a whole city becoming too numb to notice what it has become. Then Detective David Mills arrives. Mills is younger, hotter, louder, and full of the kind of energy Somerset stopped trusting years ago. He moves to the city with his wife Tracy because he wants real cases. Real meaning, real action. He thinks ambition can still be separated from naivety. Somerset can already tell it usually cannot. Their first case together is disgusting in a way that goes beyond the usual brutality. An obese man has been forced to eat until his stomach ruptures. He is found dead with his face in a plate, surrounded by signs of terror and suffering so prolonged that the room itself feels exhausted. On the wall, written in grease, is one word: gluttony. At first, it looks like a sick crime scene with theatrical flair. But Somerset sees immediately that this is not random. The killer is not just murdering. He is constructing. The second victim confirms it. A high-profile defense attorney is found butchered in his office, left to bleed out while the word greed is written in blood nearby. The wounds are savage, but the staging is controlled. This is not passion. This is a design. Somerset realizes they are not dealing with a murderer chasing pleasure, panic, or money. They are dealing with someone who wants the crimes to mean something. Someone with a framework. Someone patient. That thought is more disturbing than rage, because rage burns fast. A system lasts. Mills wants movement, leads, suspects, progress. Somerset wants books, patterns, and time to think. Their partnership immediately becomes a collision between urgency and restraint, between instinct and experience, between the need to do something and the discipline required to understand what you are seeing. The city outside keeps pressing in. Rain, sirens, neighbors who hear screams and mind their business, hallways full of arguments and television noise. Se7en is not just a crime story. It is a story about moral exhaustion, and every frame feels soaked in it. Somerset begins researching the 7 deadly sins, not because he believes in theatrical symbolism for its own sake, but because he understands that the killer does. If the murders are tied to a moral structure, then the next deaths may already be planned. That is what makes the case feel so suffocating. They are not hunting impulse, they are hunting sequence. Gluttony, greed, and still more to come. The next sign is sloth. They discover a man tied to a bed in secret captivity for a full year, left to waste away into something barely recognizable as human. At first the officers assume the body is long dead. Then the man coughs. The room erupts. The victim has been kept alive in a state worse than death, photographed over time as his body decays. Air fresheners hang everywhere, as if scent could fight what the killer has turned that room into. It is one of the most horrifying reveals in the film because it is not just murder. It is prolonged authorship. If you enjoy dark movie stories like this, subscribe to Cinema Trigger, leave a like, and comment the next film you want on the channel. Because this story is not just about catching a killer. It is about what happens when someone decides that horror can be a sermon. Mills is shaken, but he still treats the case like something that can be beaten with enough momentum. Somerset sees something worse. He sees intelligence, preparation, and the kind of patience that makes capture much harder than people think. Then comes lust. A prostitute is found murdered in a sex club in a way so grotesque that the witness who was forced to do it can barely speak. The killer has weaponized desire itself, turning the sin into physical torture and permanent psychological ruin. BT's pointed detectives know exactly what they are facing. A man who believes he is not merely punishing individuals, but illustrating human corruption. Every crime is staged as a lesson. Every victim is selected as a symbol, and symbols are dangerous because they let a killer feel righteous. The final 2 sins before the ending are pride and envy. But before the detectives can reach them, the case keeps getting uglier. Somerset and Mills follow a paper trail through library records. apartment addresses, and hidden clues, slowly closing in on a suspect who has anticipated almost every move. They finally identify him through a combination of illegal shortcuts and desperate logic. The name is John Doe. It is a blank name, almost a refusal of identity, like the man has already decided that his personhood matters less than his message. Detectives reach Doe's apartment. The place is exactly what you would expect from a mind like his. Notebooks, evidence, photographs, plans, and an atmosphere so concentrated with purpose that it feels less like a home and more like a chapel built for hate. Then Doe returns. He sees Mills and Somerset in the hallway and runs. The chase that follows is one of the most important moments in the film because it strips away the intellectual distance of the investigation. Until now, Doe has been a design. Suddenly he is breath, footsteps, panic, flesh. Mills chases him through alleys, stairwells, and streets, driven by instinct and fury. Somerset follows behind, slower but steadier, already fearing that Mills's aggression will make him vulnerable. He is right. Doe ambushes Mills at gunpoint, knocks him down, and could kill him then and there. Instead, he spares him. He looks at him, almost studies him, then walks away. That choice matters more than the chase itself, because John Doe does not spare people by accident. If he leaves Mills alive, then Mills is already part of the plan. Back at the station, Somerset keeps building the psychological picture. He understands something Mills still resists. Doe is not improvising. He is finishing. The murders are not random chapters. They are a complete structure moving toward a final reveal. Meanwhile, Tracy Mills's wife reaches out to Somerset privately. She confesses that she hates the city, feels isolated, and is pregnant. She has not yet told Mills. The conversation is quiet, intimate, and devastating because it introduces innocence into a story that has almost none. Somerset listens to her with the tenderness of a man who has seen enough of the world to fear what it does to hopeful people. He tells her, gently and painfully, that if she decides not to keep the baby, he understands. It is one of the film's most human moments, and it matters because it plants the emotional bomb long before the audience realizes it. Then John Doe walks into the police station, covered in blood, calm, and ready. The surrender is shocking because it feels too easy, which means it is not easy at all. Doe gives himself up only after completing most of his work, and he does it with the confidence of someone who still controls the ending. He tells the detectives that he will reveal the locations of the final two bodies if Mills and Somerset personally accompany him. The law, the lawyers, the media circus, of it becomes secondary to one thing. Getting to the end of Doe's design, they drive with him out of the city and into a barren landscape that feels almost biblical in its emptiness. The shift in setting matters. The film moves from urban rot to open isolation, as if the final act requires stripping away all noise until only judgment remains. In the car, Doe explains himself. He does not rant like a madman trying to impress strangers. He speaks with calm conviction. He believes the world is morally diseased. He believes his crimes force people to look at what they usually ignore. He believes he has made something unforgettable. That is the horror of John Doe. He is not chaotic. He's coherent. Coherent evil is always more terrifying than random evil. Somerset argues with him, calling his philosophy empty and self-serving. Mills reacts with anger, disgust, and disbelief. The contrast matters. Somerset sees Doe as a diseased logic. Mills sees him as a monster who needs to be stopped. Both are right, but neither fully understands yet how personal the ending is about to become. They arrive at an empty field, all power lines and dust, and wait. There's no obvious crime scene. No screaming victim. No body posed like before. Just silence and dread stretching wider every minute. Then a delivery van appears. A package is dropped off. Somerset intercepts it and opens the box. What he sees changes everything. The film never shows the contents directly, and it does not need to. Somerset's reaction tells us enough. Inside is Tracy's severed head. The moment lands with devastating force, because it is not just gore or shock. It is the collapse of every emotional defense the film has built up until then. Doe explains the final part of his masterpiece. He envied Mills. His normal life, his wife, the piece of humanity Doe himself could never have. So envy is his sin. and now Mills must become wrath. That is the final design. Not just 7 crimes, 7 sins completed through one final moral trap. If Mills kills Doe, the structure is perfect. If he doesn't, Tracy's murder remains unpunished in the most immediate, emotional sense. Either way, Doe wins because he has turned justice into a psychological impossibility. Mills breaks. Of course, he breaks. He asks Somerset what is in the box, even though he already knows. Somerset tries to stop the truth from fully reaching him. But truth travels faster than mercy in that moment. Once Mills understands that Tracy is dead and that she was pregnant, the field becomes a furnace. Doe keeps talking. He keeps pushing. He knows exactly where Mills is most vulnerable now. He does not need a weapon. The whole point is that Mills becomes the weapon. Somerset pleads with him not to do it. His voice changes from command to desperation because this is no longer about procedure. It is about saving one man's soul from another man's design. But Mills cannot hold the line. The grief is too immediate. The cruelty is too total. The trap is too perfectly built. He shoots John Doe. And with that, the final sin is completed. Wrath. The reason 7 remains one of the bleakest thrillers ever made is that the ending does not feel like a victory in any direction. The killer dies. Yes, but only after completing exactly what he wanted. The detective survives, but in a way that destroys him. Justice happens. But on the killer's terms, that kind of ending stays in the mind because it refuses catharsis. Nobody is cleansed. Nobody is restored. The city does not improve. The rain may stop, but the rot remains. Somerset, who spent the entire film trying to retire from a world he no longer believed could be healed, now has to reckon with the fact that he has watched another good man be broken open in front of him. Mills, who entered the film believing that drive, courage, and passion could cut through darkness, becomes proof that fury can be manipulated as easily as fear. And John Doe, even in death, succeeds in becoming unforgettable. 7 works so powerfully because it is not really about clues. The clues matter, but they are not the soul of the film. The soul of the film is inevitability. From the moment the first victim appears, the story feels like something already in motion, already destined to end badly, already too carefully designed to stop cleanly. That structure gives the film its suffocating power. Every sin is not just a murder scene. It is a step, a rhythm, a moral staircase descending toward one final collapse. Gluttony is excess punished. Greed is appetite punished. Sloth is stagnation punished. Lust is desire punished. Pride is image punished. Envy is longing punished. Wrath is grief weaponized. The brilliance of that sequence is that the final sin is not assigned to one of Doo's chosen victims. It is forced out of a detective we've come to care about. The audience is not just watching a killer enact a plan. The audience is watching the plan reach out and contaminate the people trying to stop it. That is why the ending hurts so much. It makes the story personal. At the exact moment it becomes irreversible. Somerset also matters more than people sometimes realize. He is not simply the older detective explaining things. He is the moral temperature of the film. He has spent years looking at a city so diseased that retirement feels like surrender rather than relief. He reads deeply, because books make more sense than people. He notices details because details do not lie the way institutions do. He protects his emotional core with precision because caring too much in a place like this can make a person collapse. And yet, he still cares. His final line about the world being a fine place worth fighting for, and only agreeing with the second part, is devastating because it comes after everything. He does not sound healed. He sounds committed despite the evidence. That may be the film's smallest thread of hope, and even that hope feels bruised. Mills and Somerset are also two different answers to the same world. Mills believes you fight corruption by charging into it. Somerset believes you survive corruption by seeing it clearly. Neither approach is enough to stop John Doe, but together they reveal how impossible the battle really is. John Doe is frightening because he understands that. He knows anger. He knows vanity. He knows appetite. Most of all, he knows how easily people can be pushed into becoming symbols inside someone else's story. That is what he turns Mills into, not just a grieving husband. Wrath. And once Mills becomes a symbol, His humanity is reduced to function inside the killer's design. That is one of the darkest ideas in Se7en. Evil here is not just violence. It is authorship. It is the ability to decide what other people mean by placing them inside a narrative they did not choose. The city in the film helps that idea breathe. Everything is dirty, crowded, overheated, and exhausted. Apartments look temporary, even when people have lived there for years. Police offices feel bureaucratic rather than heroic. Streets are loud, anonymous, and indifferent. The environment itself seems to agree with Doe that moral decay is everywhere. But the film is smarter than Doe's worldview. It does not fully endorse him. It shows us the sickness he exploits, but it also shows us tenderness, decency, and pain. Tracy's fear, Somerset's compassion. Mills's love, however impulsive. Those things matter because without them, Doe would not need to destroy anything. There would be nothing left worth corrupting. That is why the box ending is so brutal. It does not just kill a character. It attacks the idea that private love can remain untouched by public evil. And once that line is crossed, the case is no longer about solving murder. It is about witnessing the complete destruction of meaning. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Cinema Trigger, leave a like, and comment the next movie you want covered. Because the most disturbing villains are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes they are the ones who understand exactly how to turn your worst emotion into the final piece of their masterpiece.